Unless you want me to prepare, then wait a couple more minutes. All right.
Page?
Today is Daf Tes. Tessie. Yeah, Tessie. Today is Daf Tes.
The old bat.
Mesechus Nedarim.
And away.
And away we
That
go.
was my next door neighbor.
Nine Mishnah. So if one says, and once, so we'll soon see that Shmuel is going to sort of have a mahalach into a way to read our Mishnah. I'll sort of read it like Shmuel will interpret it a couple lines into the Gemara. But if one says Kenidre Rishayim, like the vows of Rishayim, Nodar is a valid vow, because we'll soon see that is not a virtuous practice to go ahead and make a neder, right? Is something that is frowned upon apparently, because a person could violate it. Right? He's creating for himself potentially surim that he might not fulfill, and therefore, so Rishayim are the ones who speak quickly. They're the ones who go ahead and say, "I'm going to make a neder." So if one says Kenidre Rishayim Nodar, it is a valid vow because in others it means that he's using a lashon that people who make nedarim, which are Rishayim, I'm going to make a neder just like them. So, and that works. Benazir, uvekarban, uveshvua. Right? We'll explain the case of shkach. We'll explain the scenarios in the Gemara. It could create nazirus. It can create an animal is designated as a karban, and create a shvua that a person can obligate himself to do or not to do something. If the individual says, new case, kenidre kasherim,
Right.
like nedarim of kasherim of kosher people, then lay amar klum. Then he hasn't said anything. Why? Because ksherim do not make nedarim. They don't, right? They don't go ahead. People will say, I'll go there, pli neder, right? Right? So without a neder, in other words, it's not virtuous to go ahead and make a neder because you're just creating for yourself a potential stumbling block. However, if he says kinavoisam, the nedavas of ksherim, then nodar, then it is valid when it comes to benazir uvekarba, right? When it comes to nazirus, right? A nedava, right? Now a nedava is basically different than a neder. Now a neder over here, sort of the term is sort of used loosely because really the word neder is referring to a shvua, which is on the individual, right? The individual to do something versus a nedava, which is upon in other words, basically there's no achrayus that this is an adava, and if this gets lost or the item, then it doesn't have to be replaced, as opposed to a shvua that a person has to go ahead and actually do it. And if something happens to, let's say it's a carbon, that happens to that animal, go ahead and find a different animal. If it doesn't find a different animal, so that is different. That would be a shvua versus a nedava, more of a gift, upon the object. Let's see.
Amen. Beautiful.
As I say, the Gemara doesn't say that. So the Gemara says, maybe when it says Kenidre Rishayim, he means Kenidre Rishayim, lo nedarna, right? Like the nedara of the Rishayim, in other words, who don't make nedara. Shamar Shmuel says Shmuel, no, this is how you understand the Mishnah. B'omer Kenidre Rishayim, right? When he says like the vows of Rishayim, and he says either, we'll explain these cases, Hareini, Alai, or Vehemenu, right? He says, Hareini, behold I am, or Alai, upon me, or Vehemenu, from it. Those three. In other words, how is he saying these? So he says, Kenidre Rishayim, Hareini, then Benazirus. Then if he says Hareini, then he's a Nazir. Right, and we'll soon explain why Badaf is referring to Nazirus that he's accepting upon himself. Hareini, behold, I am. Knows I'm accepting upon myself Nazirus. Therefore, it would be a Nazirus. If he says Kenidre Rishayim Alai, right, referring to an animal, but Karban, this animal is a Karban. It says Adar Hekdesh. Hey Menu, right, from it. The Shvua, right? He's basically making a Shvua that he's not going to go ahead and partake of a certain food, right? So Gemara says, let's explain each case. So Hareini Nazirus, when he says Hareini, it means Nazirus. I Dilma Hareini B'tainus. Maybe when he's accepting upon himself. Who says Nazirus accepting upon himself? Maybe he's accepting upon himself a tainus to go ahead and fast the next day. Dilma Hareini B'tainus. Tamar Samar Shmuel Kshahaya Nazir Oiver Lefanav. A Nazir is passing before him, and now that's the scenario. And then he says, "Kenidre Rishayim Hareini," right? Like the vows of Rishayim Hareini, right? Behold, I am. In other words, he's accepting since the Nazir is passing in front of him. Therefore, we know he's referring to Nazirus, and therefore that Nazirus would, that the Kabbalas Nazirus would be valid. Heimenu. And we said the next case was Heimenu from it, or actually it was the third case, right? It doesn't explain Alai B'Korban. Heimenu b'Shvua, right? From it is the Shvua. So the Gemara says, Dilma Heimenu Dachil. Maybe he means that he's going to eat from it. So Kamar Samarava, the Amr Heimenu Shlo Echel, right? He says, Kenidre Rishayim Heimenu Shlo Echel, right? Like the vows the Rishayim, from it I shall not eat. So therefore he's being specific that he's saying, I will not eat from it. So Gemara says, if that's the case, he says all that. What's the chiddush here? So Ma'az Demojev said, he didn't say, right, I'm making a shvua. He just said, Kenidre Rishayim Heimenu Shlo Echel. So he didn't really do, right, make the lashon, right, the 1A lashon of a shvua, and therefore maybe the shvua is not chal. Kamash blood. Hadin therefore comes to teach is hadin working out. Loma pi shvua mipume kamash blood. Fine. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, something got hadin. Right. So kamash blood that it is a valid net. And then the next part, Kenidre kasherim loymar klum. If he says like the Nedarim of kasherim doesn't work, but the Nedavas of kasherim, so then that works when it comes to Nazirus, and it works when it comes to by a karba. So we see that our Tanakama is mechalek between Nedava, or our Mishnah differentiates between Nedavas and Nedarim, right? Good tzaddikim or kasherim do Nedavas, they don't do Nedarim. So man, so Zak the Gemara, man Tana Deshani lay bein neder lenedava. Who is the Tana who differentiates between a neder and a nedava, right? So lema loy Rabbi Meir, loy Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say it's not the opinion of Rabbi Meir or Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, as we learn in the Brisa, Toiva shir loisidor, the famous pasuk in Koheles, right? It says that which great is the one who doesn't make a vow. Mm-hmm. And tov mizeh she'enayder kalikar, divrei Meir, right? So now there's basically three categories: a person who makes a neder and fulfills it, person who makes a neder and doesn't fulfill it, and person who doesn't make a neder and does it. So says Rabbi Meir, better is the one who makes a vow, and even if he fulfills it, better is the one who doesn't make a neder and just does it anyways. Right? You don't need to make the neder. Don't make the neder because it's a potential stumbling block. In this case, you haven't to fulfill it. Right? Don't do it again. So according to Rabbi Meir, don't do it at all. And Rabbi Yehuda Meir, Taiv mizeh neider mashalim. What's better than making a neder and not fulfilling it, or not making a neder and doing it? What's better? Making a neder and fulfilling it. That's the best. So you see, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's a virtuous thing. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, right, as we're going to get to Rabbi Yehuda tomorrow, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, right, kasherim, what's the best thing you can do? Make a neder and fulfill it. So our mission doesn't seem like to say that. So Rabbi Meir seems no nedarim are good, and Rabbi Yehuda seems make a neder and fulfill it. That's really good. So who's the author of our Mishnah that differentiates, right? There's mechalik between nedarim and nedavos. So Gemara says, "Afil te Rabbi Yehuda." Let's say Rabbi Meir. And now where we see, so Rabbi Meir, remember, was the one who l'chara said you don't do it at all, right? You know what's best. Stay quiet and let your actions speak. Right, right. So, but our Mishnah says nedavos are good because it says but nedarim, right? So let's see. So afil tema Rabbi Meir, you want, so maybe it's a little bit like you're saying, Alan, right? Let's see. Ki kama Rabbi Meir beneder. He's talking about nedarim, right? When a person is making something and he's going to go ahead and fulfill. Right, he has to do it, and therefore there's a chrayas on him. Right. However, the nedava like kama, but it's not referring to a nedava. V'haktani bin nevaisam nadar. When he says like they're nedavas, it's a neder, but nazir v'karban. Satani nadav. No, it doesn't say bin nevaisam nadav. It says bin nevaisam nadav. but Nazir b'korban, right? So therefore, it doesn't mean that if he says they're Nadavas, it's a Neder. It means if he says like the Nadavas of Kasherim, then he has been Nadav either when it comes to Nazirus or when it comes to Nazirus or when it comes to a Korban. Now, Umaish na Neder Delo. So why not Nadarim Delo? Dumas about the Takala, because a Neder might come to a Takala, right? So a Neder one says he's going to go ahead and do something. If he doesn't do it, he's in a Takala. Nadava Nami Lo. Dumas about the Takala. What about this a Takala by Nadava? In other words, if you go ahead, you say this animal is a gift. In other words, it's kachim. So yeah, enachanami, that you're not placing responsibility upon yourself. In other words, it's not on you. It's this animal is the gift. But there's other halachas when it comes to gifts. Let's say bal ta'acher, do not delay. So if I say this animal is a gift and I wait too long to go ahead and bring it, I've all of a sudden created a takala, stumbling block, right? For me not to fulfill it. So their answer is no. What's a virtuous nadava? Kehilel hazakin. Like Hillel hazakin. The time is in the Raisa. Amra al Hillel hazakin shlema adam be'alasa kayama. No one ever, right? Another issue is also me'ilah, right? Getting hana, right? Perhaps from something which is designated as hekash, right? So said no one ever performed me'ilah with an animal of Hillel hazakin. Why is that? Because kshuchulin. Let's get the word. Kayama. Why? Mevia kshuchulin le'azara. In other words, he wouldn't designate an animal as hektish and then go ahead and bring it to the mikdash, because once he designate it as hektish, it's now proper to base the mikdash. And if one gets hana from it, he uses it to plow, whatever it is, he has violated me'ilah. He's got forbidden hana. So what did he do? He didn't make it hektish in his house. Rather, he brought the chulin animal, right? It was still mundane. It was never designated. Then once in the azara, then he was makdish the animal. Then immediately he did smicha. He said whatever he linked on the animal. He said whatever what one says and introduced the korban, and they shechted it. So therefore, there was no time for there to be a takala.
That's quite
fine. Say nichel and the dove the karbana is okay. This I see the dove by karbanos. The dove of the nazirus my equal the So what about the dove by nazirus? How do we see that's virtuous? To be Nazirus.
Good word. Very good.
So they use it multiple times today. So like Shimon Tzadik, you also Shimon Tzadik. This time is the Rabbi Shimon Tzadik. Instead of Shimon Tzadik. All my days were Achalti Oshem Nazir Tamei Elach. Now we know there's different karbanos that are brought at the end of the Nazir. So there's also karbanos that are brought if a Nazir becomes Tamei in the middle, he has to stop as Nazirus. He has to go ahead and become tar, bring his karbanos, right? Karbanos for just breaking his nazirus, then he has to restart. Okay, so one of those karbanos that are brought only by tamei, but not at the end of a good nazirus, is the asham nazir. Asham nazir is brought becomes tamei. So he said he never ate an asham, right? Because the asham you eat some parts of it. He never ate from an asham of a nazir except for one time. So what happened then? So one time, someone came, he was a Nazir from the south. Nice eyes, he was a handsome guy. Right? His payas were nice and curled, right? He's straight to the mikvah, he did the right, real nice and tight, right? His locks were beautiful. So Martilo, and he was a Nazir, a current Nazir. He was going to go ahead and eventually shave it all off. So Martilo b'ni mariza lahashkes aserecha, right? Zana, right? So he said, what did you see, right? That why are you going to go ahead and destroy, right? This hair of yours, this beautiful hair.
Because he's got to shave.
Samala, Raya, at the end of your year. Samala, Raya, Isi Liaba, Biri. I was a shepherd for my father. Halachi los Mayim, Mayim. So I was going with the animals, and I went to go ahead to the well. Mr. Kaldiba Shali, and I looked at my image. Upachas alai yitzri. Right, and my Yitzhara was telling me, "Oh, you're so handsome. Go out and enjoy the world." Right, to go to a singles bar. Right, Pachas alai hamayim. Right. Upachas alavi ha'yitzi, ubikesh letordani min ha'elam. And my Yetzirah wanted to remove me from this world. I do isurim, from my good looks. So marti lo. So I said basically to myself, to my Yetzirah, Rasha, lama ata mizgah be'elam sheina shelcha. Right? Why are you trying to go ahead and use a world, right, that's not yours? Misha hu asi liyais rima v'tala. Right? That you're going to eventually become, full of worms, right? You're going to be 6 feet under. No, this isn't that you're only a temporary guest in this world. Why you, want to go ahead and enjoy this world as if it's yours? It's not yours, right? You're going to end up in the ground. How my goodness, right? Basically, a lashon of that doesn't make it a nether. I'm going to go ahead and remove it l'shem shemayim. So that was the story he told. So that's how I became a Nazir, basically to go ahead and, my Yitzhar came and I said, no, it's too much. I got to go ahead and, follow Hashem. So upon hearing the story, Shimon says, Miyad, Amati v'nishkati al Rosho, I gave him a kiss upon his head. Amarti lo b'ni kamecha yirbu nazir Yisrael. This is a virtuous Nazir, right? This is, if you want to become a Nazir for a certain reason, this is the reason why one becomes a Nazir. There should be more like you who get Nazirs upon this. About Pasuk says, right? This is La Hashem. This is for you become the Naziris for the sake of Hashem. So that was the virtuous type of Naziris. Samask of Rav Mani, Samaishna Hashem Nazir. Tame, Deloyachal. So okay, so he said this was the only one he ate because this was a special case because his Nazirs was the same Shemayim. So, but he said other Asham Nazirs,
other Ashams in general.
Oh, let's see. Maishna Asham Nazir Tame Deloachal. Why did you not eat other Asham Nazir Tames? Right? No, the Asham that came from Nazir was Tame Deloachal. Diasi al Chet, right? Because it came for a chait, right? It wasn't a virtuous Nazirus. The guy became tamei, and therefore now you're bringing a carbon because he messed up because he became tamei. So kol shamas nami leilecho al chait also. So you should never eat an asham because an asham really comes from a chait, right? A person brings an asham, right? Because he did an asham vaday, right? He did a certain avera, or even an asham talui, right? Something that he might have done something, but there's still something that was done wrong. Samalei Rabbi Yena Hainu Tamok Shehein Toyin. Right, when people stand, they accept upon themselves, Nazirus immediately, not for, they did something wrong. Okay, I'm going to become a Nazir, right? Very quick to swear and become a Nazir, right? They think it fixes everything. Okay, I'll just become a Nazir. And then all of a sudden, let's say they become Tommy in the middll, right? For Rabbi, you mean Nazirus now in addition, so they already sat, for 21 days, but now became Tommy. They got to become Torah. They got to do it again. So it's not just a 30-day process. It could perhaps even take months, right? For a person to finish a full 30-day Nazirus. And therefore, the person is going to have mischaratan bahen, and they're going to have charata, they're going to have remorse that they ever became a Nazir in the first place. But in Summa Vina Chula Azara, and it'll be like, not exactly, but it'll be like, like their ashams or their karbanos are no longer, lishma. So therefore, it's not going to come lishma. So, and therefore, Yihachi Afil Nazir Tar. So, Gemara says that that's the case. So, Yihachi Afil Nazir Tar Nami. So, what about a Nazir Tahor? So, Nazir Tahor lo. No, because when it comes to Nazir Tahor, even though at the end there's a Chatas is also brought, I think it's an Oila, a Shlamim, and a Chatas. And an Ola, right? So those three are brought. So he eats from there. Why does he partake of those? Because the person in the beginning can say, "Hey, 30 days I can do it." And he does 30 days, and he fulfills it. So therefore, if it's just a straight 30 days, there is no real remorse by the person because he was set out to fill something. He did it, right? And therefore, so that it was brought lishma, and therefore, in such a case is virtuous, and that would be something that Shimon HaTzadik would have partaken. All right, we'll stop here before the Gemara suggests that it could even be Rabbi Yehuda. So